One of the biggest differences between expert ball strikers and the poorest golfers is the way they deliver the club at impact. Specifically, the best players are able to deliver their fairway shots with this compressed look. The shaft is leaning forwards, the wrist is flat, this lead arm and shaft form a straight line. Conversely, the poorest players tend to look more like this at impact, with the shaft overtaking the hands and the lead arm, this flipping or scooping action leading to poor contact and a huge loss of distance. In today's video, I am going to share with you the mechanics of the wrists necessary to deliver this expert player's impact condition and teach you how to compress the ball better than ever before. In order to help you to do this better, I'd like to explain some of the wrist motion that's necessary to achieve this desired impact. So at setup, when we begin, we have the wrist, this lead wrist, in a small amount of extension. That means it has a little bit of cupping to it. Now, the amount of cupping you have will be based somewhat on your grip type, how turned or rotated your hand is, and how you choose to lean the shaft or not at setup. But the best golfers would all tend to have a small amount of extension in their lead wrist when they set up. And all of them would deliver the club with less extension. So the club would be more closed, the shaft would be more forwards, and the wrist would be more flexed or flat, moving into this condition here. This is a flexed lead wrist, where the wrist is moving in this direction, and this is an extended lead wrist where it's cupped. So the best players are more flexed at impact than they were at setup. The poorest players are more extended at impact than they were at setup. So now you sort of understand some of that motion. We're going to take the HackMotion wrist sensor and measure how those things look and show you how you can train the correct wrist mechanics to optimize your ball striking. I have the HackMotion wrist sensor now attached to my lead wrist. I've calibrated the sensor and I have the app open. I'm going to go ahead and hit a shot and show you what I mean by how the best players are more flexed at impact than they are at setup. That was a really nice shot. Solid strike, 7-iron, tiny little draw, 160 meters. Let's go and take a look at that data and see what my wrist was doing there at impact. The HackMotion app makes this really easy to use. Wrist angles can be a super complex subject that many instructors struggle to get their head around. But the way this app works is it's very clearly lined out for you in terms of what you need to look for. They give you specific ranges of where you should be with your wrist via the Flexion extension at address, all the way at the top of the backswing, and then one more time down at impact. If you take a look at the screen here, you'll see how at address, as I described to you, I'm in a little bit of extension. Okay, so this wrist is not flat, there's a little bit of cupping, and that's typically caused by the fact that I've got my left hand turned slightly on the grip. But then at the top, I've twisted this grip from an extended condition much, much closer to flat. So that +7 number means that my wrist is fairly close to being flat at the top of the swing. And again, you'll typically see that in expert ball strikers. They're moving the wrist toward flexion because that's going to allow them to deliver that desirable impact position. And then you take a look at the impact tile and you'll see that I fall very much within the range, the recommended range of flexion at impact. So I've moved my wrists from 22 degrees of extension at setup to 4 degrees of flexion at impact. That's 26 degrees of twisting about this shaft. If you don't think wrist angles are important in the golf swing, then you really don't understand how the golf swing works. Getting your wrist angles right is the key to successful ball striking and that consistency that you've been looking for. Like so many things in golf, in order to make a change, we really need to exaggerate the feeling that we're looking for. So if I need to be very, very slightly flexed here at impact, the goal in a drill would be to exaggerate this feeling. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and hit some shots with my favorite drill of all time. I call it hit hard, stop quick. You're going to swing fast, you're going to keep your hands ahead of the ball, and you're going to hit the ball and stop your swing as quickly as you can. You try and stop the club by the time it reaches the edge of the mat. Me making contact with the mat there actually recorded that swing, so we're going to take a quick look and see how much flexion was actually in that lead wrist when I made contact with the ground. This is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. With no ball there, I was able to exaggerate this feeling of the wrist, and you'll see it impact how I was 11 degrees flexed. I was 20 degrees outside the range because I'm exaggerating the feeling. If you struggle with your wrist angles or any change you're trying to make in your golf swing, if you're not exaggerating the opposite effect, the likelihood is you're not changing it at all. And the only way to truly know what you're doing is to measure what's going on. If you can measure something, you can manage it. And taking a look at this drill, you can see that this is truly changing how flexed my lead wrist was there when I made that practice swing. I'm going to go ahead and do one now where I make contact with the ball. This is my favorite drill of all time. Hit hard, stop quick, and we'll take another look at these wrist angles. We'll start with a normal setup. We're not going to do anything different here. And my goal as I hit this ball is to have the shaft leaning, the wrist twisted or flexed, hit the ball hard into the mat, into the screen, and stop as quickly as I can. The drill is exceptional. If you've never tried it, I absolutely implore you to have a go at this exercise. The contact on that ball was absolutely pure, completely flushed. It's got 155 meters with a 7-iron. That's almost full distance for me, and yet you saw how quickly I stopped the swing. Managing the wrist angles like that helps me to improve my contact. I really can't wait to take a look at what the app says to see if my feeling matched the reality. And I'm happy to say that it did. I managed to deliver 11 degrees of flex in the lead wrist when I hit the ball that time, and that is a great amount. It's more than I would do in a normal standard swing, but as an exercise or a training aid or a training feel, it's a superb way to train the desired amount of shaft lean at impact. So if you're looking to add more shaft lean and better compression to your iron shots, improve your ball striking, you have to understand what your wrists are doing. And the only way to truly do that is to measure what's going on. Go ahead and give the hit hard, stop quick drill a go. I promise you it will improve your ball striking. And if you're looking to improve your wrist mechanics overall, the only way to do it is to measure what's going on. And the best piece of equipment on the market to do that is the HackMotion wrist sensor. I highly encourage you to check them out.